It's a bit of a bargain, this Cupra. It just has one little problem. Hello guys, and welcome back to the volkswizard channel. Now, in recent years I've become a bit of a fan of the Mk3 Seat Leon Cupra, so much so it's had me questioning my loyalty to the Golf GTI. That's because it seems to offer so much more but for significantly less cash. So in today's video I'm going to give you 10 reasons why I think the Mk3 Seat Leon Cupra 280 is better than the Golf GTI, specifically the Mk7 Golf GTI with performance pack. That was the best Golf GTI on sale when the Cupra 280 was on sale. But before we do that, if you haven't already guys, please do subscribe to the channel. On most devices you just need to click the icon on the bottom right of the screen there. Right, let's get started then with reason 10 why the Cupra 280 is better than the Golf GTI. Okay, we're going to start off then with the least significant items first, though for me personally this should be way higher up the order, because it's always really bugged me how on Mark 7 and even Mark 8 Golf there is zero protection to the sill step, so it's very easy to scuff this bit of paintwork here, and on the passenger side you can't control that. On the driver's side you can be careful, but yeah, what the passenger does, well, you know, they might actually tread on the sill step, which I'm sure for a lot of you guys, including me, that's really not a good thing to do. So it's really good that on this car, the Cupra, you get an aluminium sill protector. Okay, it doesn't cover all of it, but it does some protection. It also looks really good. It looks expensive. I know there's a lot of talk about the material quality in the Cupra being inferior to the Golf, but this kind of goes some way to right that. It's aluminium, the Cupra logo is really high quality engraved in there. We've got two different colours as well for the checkered flag logo. So yeah, I think that's, you know, a definite advantage over the Golf GTI that you get this as standard on the Cupra. Okay, on to point number 9 then. Now with the Mk7 Golf GTI, for the UK market at least, we got as standard by xenon headlamps. Now these were good headlamps, but by 2013 this technology was quite old and it did have its downsides. The main one was efficiency. Because there were bright bulbs being used, they did draw a lot of current, and that impacts the overall efficiency of the car, increasing fuel consumption and CO2 emissions. Also, to comply with European law, any car fitted with xenon headlamps had to have headlamp washers and self-leveling as standard. This is because a dirty lens will scatter the beam and it'll blind oncoming traffic. Likewise, if you put a lot of weight in the boot, it tips the front of the car up, and without self-leveling, the beam can blind oncoming drivers. This adds to the complexity of xenon headlamps and can cost owners quite a lot of money to sort out as the cars get older, because the headlamp washers can fail and the self-leveling sensors on the axles can fail as well, because they're very close to the mud and salt that you get splashed around underneath there. Also, bi-xenons use normal bulbs and they can be quite expensive to replace, and before they completely fail they also lose their intensity. And another problem with bi-xenons is that they use very high voltage, so if you touch one when it's operating, the internal bits of it, you can actually die. What we got with the Mk3 Leon Cupra was LED technology. I'm sure you guys all know that that is sort of like the future of lighting. It's much more efficient, and yeah, this was the first compact car to get LED headlights. The benefits are it's more efficient, so you get more light for the same amount of energy, and it's much simpler to install. You don't have all the problems of level sensors and headlamp washers, and it looks really cool. So this looks like a much more modern headlight than a traditional xenon headlight. You can see the LED array in there. Now with the Mark 7.5 Golf, the facelift Mark 7, they finally fitted LED headlights to the Golf, but you can get them a lot earlier in the Leon. Okay, on to number 8 then. Now in the Mark 7 Golf, the infotainment screen is located somewhere around here, and it's not a bad position, but it could be better, and it is better in the Mk3 Seat Leon because it's here at the top of the dashboard, and that means it's perfectly in line with the instrument cluster. The benefit of that is that your eyes are used to looking at this height, so all you have to do is sort of move to the left, or if you're in a left-hand drive car, move to the right to see the screen, rather than have to move sort of downwards. So it's easier to look at when it's here. It's obviously closer to the windscreen being here than it would be further down, so you don't have to look as far away from where you should be looking. Also, because It's here. It's easier for you to see what your hands are doing when you need to press these buttons or use the touchscreen. It's so much better here that in the Golf 8, which depends so much on its screen, they actually moved it to the same position as the Mk3 Leon. So yeah, I know there's some bad bits about the interior in the Leon, but the fact the screen is higher is really so much better than where it is in the Golf. Okay, on to point number 7 then. Now with the Mk7 Golf GTI, it took until the very last year of production for cars to get navigation as standard. So that means any 2013, 2014, 2015 is unlikely to have it unless the owner paid extra for it. With the Mk3 Seat Leon Cupra, navigation was completely free of charge. It was standard with all of them. Now that might not sound like a really big deal today because we're used to Apple CarPlay and taking our navigation with us using our phones, but you have to bear in mind those years when this was standard and it wasn't in the Golf GTI were the years when CarPlay wasn't available in those cars, so it's much more important to have it. And it's still quite a good navigation system now. You know, you can drag the screen along, you can zoom in like that. It's got an altimeter, which I think is really cool. I'm sure you can update it quite easily as well. So yeah, it was quite an important option on the Golf as well. I think it was probably over £1,000 to get the Discover navigation system, because I spec'd it on my Golf R. So yeah, standard on the Cupra. Okay, now on to point number 6, or maybe that should be sits, because we're going to talk about the seats next. Now in the Golf 7 GTI, you had reasonably sporty seats. They were available as standard in tartan, or you could spec leather at great expense. In the Cupra, the standard seat was a very similar sort of shape, and it came with black Alcantara as standard. Again, you could spec leather for quite a lot more, but there was one option, and this option is what I mean, imagine people who watch this channel would go for. You could spec some bucket seats, which we have in this car. That's why I bought this car, really, because they add so much to the cabin. Okay, they're not as trick as the ones in the Mk7 Golf GTI Club Sport, but they're still really nice to have, and I'd imagine they were quite a lot cheaper as an option. I'm not sure exactly how much they were. We've got this white outer section which, you know, does lift them a bit. We haven't just got a load of black in here, but that does wear quite a lot on the driver's side. Unfortunately, we've got fake leather on the bolsters, but importantly we have Alcantara on the contact surfaces, which means they are super grippy, and unlike earlier Alcantara from the early noughties, it does seem to wear quite well. This driver's seat is no worse than this, and it's done sort of nearly 60,000 miles. So well done Cupra for giving us the option of a bucket seat, which we couldn't even get on the Mk7 Golf R. Okay, on to number 5, and that is that the Mk3 Seat Leon Cupra is a more discreet car than the Golf GTI. It's a sporty car, but there are actually loads of sporty Seats. Seat have spread sportiness throughout the range, primarily because I think at least probably 70% of the cars sold are FR models, and they look pretty similar to the Cupra. Take the badges off and you wouldn't really be able to tell. Okay, we do have 2 oval exhausts down here, but they're not exactly in your face like the ones on the Golf R, and when they're nice and sooty, you barely even notice them. So for me, it's a definite plus point to have a car with this level of performance that pretty much blends in with every other Leon on the road. This one's a bit of an exception because the mirrors and the grille are painted in orange, but that's a very rare thing on a Mk3 Leon Cupra, and pretty much every other example is really stealthy. Okay, on to number 4 then, and that is the question of the car's image. The Mk7 Golf GTI, like pretty much every Golf, is a classless car. That doesn't mean it doesn't have any class, quite the opposite. It means that you can't define the driver's class by the fact they're driving one. It could be a younger owner who lives with his parents, saved hard to buy one. It could be a retired accountant from the home counties. And that can be good or bad depending on your perspective. But for the purpose of this video, let's say it's a bad thing because some people might want a car with a more overtly sporting, a more overtly dynamic image. And that's what you get with the Cupra. You don't get people buying these just because it's a nice hot hatch like they do with the Golf. You get people buying these because they know it's a great value hot hatch with a lot more power than the Golf GTI. Let me explain this with a couple of props then. So in a Golf GTI, you could be that retired accountant wearing your Panama hat and, I don't know, going to a National Trust property, for example. You could also be the young enthusiast with a baseball cap on, and that's also okay to wear in the Cupra as well. There is like a crossover between the two, but only in the Cupra can you wear your baseball cap backwards. I hope that makes things a lot clearer, guys. Okay, at number 3, I want to talk about the design of the cars. Now, the Mk7 Golf, it's a pretty good looking car, but it's a little bit boring. It was designed by a guy called Mark Lichter, and he went on to head Audi's design studio, and the first car he produced for them was the Audi A6. In contrast, the Mk3 Leon's design foundations were laid by a chap called Luc Donkervolk, who'd previously worked for a little company called Lamborghini, and he was the guy behind the Gallardo and the Murcielago, and you can see that in the lines of the Mk3 Leon. It's got some lovely features, like this very sort of tight crease here, the way the two creases sort of converge here. Okay, it's a hatchback, it's not a mid-engine supercar, but there are little beautiful bits of design that just make it so much more interesting to look at than the Golf. And on this car, we've got the Racing Line R360 wheels, which are a pretty convincing knockoff of those on the Lamborghini Huracan, and they just kind of make the whole car gel. So if you want a Lamborghini hatchback. Okay guys, at number 2, things get a little bit more serious. Now, with the Mk7 Golf GTI, the standard suspension was passive dampers, and that was okay, particularly if you're stuck to 18s. If you went to 19s, you probably wish you'd spec DCC, dynamic chassis control, for about £900, because the ride would be quite hard otherwise. Well, believe it or not, with the Cupra we get DCC as standards. We get 3 modes. Cupra, which I will demonstrate now, so that's the hardest mode for the suspension, and it does make it feel just so incredibly poised and agile. I use it on track, but actually it's not that bad on reasonably well surfaced roads. It just feels like a little go-kart. It's incredible. So yeah, Cupra is definitely worth having, but it's a bit too hard for the everyday, so you want something a little bit softer. Actually, the normal mode, which is called Sport, is pretty well judged. I think it does pretty much everything. Unless you're on your own having a lot of fun, you probably want to stick it in sport mode. But there is one other mode which makes this car faster, you know, more hardcore car, actually more usable than a Golf GTI without DCC, and that is comfort mode. So if you live somewhere where the roads are really badly broken up, I mean, that's pretty harsh in sport there, so we'll put it in comfort now, and it just takes the edge off the ride. Yeah, it's not as cushy as like a Golf R in comfort mode, because the springs, I'm pretty sure, are a bit harder in this car, and the dampers can only do so much. But it's anything that helps the ride is a good thing. So if you live somewhere where there are loads of speed humps, and I know there are some places where they're just everywhere, then comfort mode is a real boon. So there we are. It's a 30-mile-an-hour zone. This, we're going 30 over these speed humps. It's perfectly happy. So yeah, as freebies go, DCC is a bloody good one. Okay, at number 1, can you guess? It's pretty obvious. Really, it has to be, of course, power. So, Mk7 Golf GTI Performance, it comes with a healthy 230 horsepower, but this Cupra 280 comes with 50 more, and that's not even allowing for the fact this car dynoed at closer to 300. So I don't know what the Golf GTI Performance would dyno at, but I bet the gap in the real world is even greater. So to put that in perspective, you'd be lucky to get 50 horsepower out of your Golf GTI if you remapped it, and then you'd have possibly reliability issues, because this isn't just a remapped Golf GTI engine, it's the stronger engine used in the Golf R, and it probably would remap to, like, you know, 350 plus quite easily, and it's quite a reliable engine when it is tuned. So that means that this car is quicker everywhere, in gear. If If you rev it out, it's just got a lot more punch, a lot more of the time. 0 to 60, 5.8 seconds. I think that's the same as the Mk7 Golf GTI Club Sport S. For the Golf GTI Performance, it's 6.4, which is still okay, but 0.6 of a second is, you know, an eternity when it comes to acceleration. And we've got more torque as well. I'm sure a GTI Performance wrung out is perfectly fine on the road, but if you stick it on a racetrack, it would feel sort of slightly out of its depth with just 230 horsepower. Meanwhile, a Cupra 280 producing 300 like this one feels perfectly at home, and a well-driven car on track tyres will keep up with pretty much anything on a track day. So yeah, it's a bit of a bargain, this Cupra. It just has one little problem. And that small problem, guys, is nestled in the centre of the Leon grille. Now, even though the Seat brand has come on a lot in recent years, the badge still doesn't have the appeal of a Volkswagen one, even though VW have had a very tough time since Dieselgate. Back in 2014, I bought a brand new Mk7 Golf R, very similar spec to this Cupra actually, 3-door and manual. And even though the press would have been full of brilliant reviews of the Cupra 280 at the time, I didn't even consider it. And that's because I knew the Volkswagen badge on the Golf's nose would help it retain its value better over the couple of years that I owned it. And that's exactly how it panned out. But we're many years down the line now, and on the second-hand market, the Cupra 280 actually makes a lot more sense. It's a good chunk cheaper to buy than the Golf GTI Performance and the Mk7 Golf R, and I don't imagine depreciation will be that different between any of them over the next few years. So if you can get over that badge, guys, it's a great place to put your money. I have no intention of selling this in the foreseeable future. It does everything I want it to do. It's a great track car, it's a great daily car, and in comfort mode it's as comfortable as you could ever want it to be. It's as fast as it needs to be as well, without even really remapping it. Anyway, guys, thanks as ever for watching this VolksWizard video. If you've enjoyed it, please do give it a thumbs up. Please do comment as well. I do read them all. I'm going to try and reply to more of them in the future. So please do comment, and look out for the next video. I'm trying to drop every Friday now or Saturday with a new video. The next one after this should be my test of the Goodyear Eagle F1 Asymmetric 6 at Goodyear's test track in the south of France. In that video, I'll be driving the Cupra 4 Mentor. That's a car a lot of you have asked me to review, but I've asked Cupra and they've never replied to me. And I'm also driving the Audi TTS, as well as the Tesla Model 3 and a BMW 5 Series and the new 992 GT3 and the beautiful Ferrari 458 Speciale. Yes, that was a very good day. So see you for the next one very soon.